Saturday to you, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us once again for your favorite program, 90 Minutes in Africa. We are broadcasting from Douala, Central Africa, in Cameroon. My name is BOH Elvis at the microphone, alongside my guests, welcoming you to this edition of the program, during which we are going to be talking about the mad rush for the DV lottery in Africa. I begin with the introductory statement before I introduce to you my guests who are going to be talking on this topic today. Millions of Africans leave their homes, country every year in search of better opportunities abroad. Among some of the opportunities we have the United States DV lottery. Some of the selected migrants are among the most talented in their home countries, while some see this as beneficial through their ability to change lives and help their people back home. Others see it as a considerable loss of time and money in educating and developing their citizens, only to watch them leave. Many experts believe African nations need to make good use of their diaspora to support the economy back home. The diaspora makes huge contributions to the development of African nations by boosting job creation, sending money back home in the form of remittances. Remittance boosts home capital, increase the availability of funds in banks, and sometimes the diaspora invests directly in business opportunities and government bonds. Let's not forget the role of the diaspora in supporting education training as well as health care. The diaspora can also be very powerful advisors to the government if the governments of African countries are willing to listen. And so in today's edition of the program 90 Minutes in Africa, we will try to understand the mad rush for the DV lottery in Africa, because the DV lottery is on, and we have noticed a considerable rush by Africans to play this lottery and move to the United States of America. Why are Africans in a mad rush to leave the continent? Why should we in Africa bake bread, yet bake bread? Those are some of the issues we'll be talking about today in the program 90 Minutes in Africa with my guests who are already with me in the studio. I use the opportunity to welcome Yagaka Gabriel, who is a researcher and a political analyst, a lecturer too. Thanks for joining us, Yagaka Gabriel.
Thank you, Mr. Bo. Thank you. This is a very sensitive topic, and I'm really delighted to have been invited to share my thoughts on this. And together with the other panelists, I hope that we will be able to cogitate cogently in such a way that we can not only point out the difficulties or the pernicious aspects of these mad rush, but also propose tangible solutions, practicable solutions to our policymakers.
Thank you, Yagaka Gabriel. I can also tell our guests that this is a very important topic. So our guests that are in the United States and all over the world, wherever you are, you can also participate in this program by sending us SMS and WhatsApp messages as part of contribution to the topic. I use the opportunity to welcome Dr. Ndimancho Michael to the studio. He's a lecturer and he is the coordinator of the New Era Youth for Africa. Thanks for joining us, sir.
It's a pleasure, Mr. Bo Elvis.
I'm enjoying your dress.
Of course.
This is really quite Pan-African.
That's just in line with the topic of today, that we have to value our own. You know, we stay home and enjoy what nature has given us by right. You know, and I want to let all the other youths and all Africans know that I enjoy being in Cameroon. I enjoy being in Africa. When I go around Africa, I'm a happy man. And you know, I feel sad when I have to spend a lot of time in Europe. In Cameroon, in particular, we have all that it takes to make the America of Cameroon. So I think that it's an ideal topic, and we will be able to discuss and share views so that other youth may think, the El Dorado that most people think is over there, they should be able to find it right here at their doorsteps. Thank you so much for inviting me, Mr. BOH Elvis.
Thank you, Dr. Ndimancho Michael, joining us from the United States of America. He's one of our guests too, so that we understand the perspective, what to think about the DV lottery too from that angle, those that have been able to move over to the United States of America and they're having an impact back home. Christaian is the CEO of Voice of the Voiceless. Thank you, Christaian, for joining us for today's edition of 90 Minutes in Africa.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bo, for having me here on the program. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for us to be able to talk about the problems of Africa and also to talk about the DV lottery today. And I want to especially welcome all those who are joining this program here from the United States of America and from Africa. We are going to talk what you need to hear today.
Okay, thank you, Nchindo Christian. So how is the United States of America today? I can see you look very fresh. And of course, I think this is also a great encouragement for those who want to play the DV lottery.
Of course, the United States of America is good today. And, they say home is home, right? You can always, you must always have the urge to go back home and to enjoy home. So I think everything is good.
Thank you. I also use the opportunity now to welcome Pan-Africanists to the call. Professor Akuhmbom Mac, who is, of course, a regular guest in this program and other programs on my media prime and Pan-Africanist for us to talk about this topic, the mad rush for the DV lottery in Africa. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, BOH Elvis, and to my fellow panelists and to Africans watching us, and to you who are out there in the world as a whole. I think it is very important for us to discuss about this DV issue in Africa, and particularly in Cameroon, because it is getting indeed unbearable. I want to say we are actually in a time where if Africa does not take care, it will get into slavery. But this time, the slavery we are talking about is not going to be a slavery where Europeans are going to come to Africa to carry us with ships. We are going to board our planes and fly ourselves into America, into Europe with our own money. And that is going to actually be more challenging than it had ever been before. And so we are going to be discussing on this topic. And I think that the various ideas that we presented here today will be for one purpose: to educate our people and to unbrainwash them, because I'm sure that a lot of those who think that a DV is a place that carries is an opportunity for a lot of Africans to enter the paradise. I think Africa is the best of paradise because we have everything we have here. We have everything that we need here. And we can make Africa becomes what it's supposed to be. And I want to say that America never became what it is because Europeans were running, or Americans were running into other nations to build the other nations. They stayed in their countries and worked, invested their time and energy, and their nation became what it is. And secondly, it is not because a lizard entered a plane that it will become a crocodile in America.
Thank you, Professor Akuhmbom Mac. We launched directly the question and answer session in this program, beginning with you, Yagaka Gabriel. I want you to help us understand the importance of the DV lottery for Africans.
I don't know, but this kind of a question, I don't know if it is...
From your perspective, from your own perspective.
The importance or the pernicious aspects of the DV lottery, because I cannot talk on the importance. I am not an ambassador, neither am I an apostle of the DV lottery. I am instead, can I say, the soul, because I'll play the role of soul today. So I cannot be talking about the importance. Rather, let us examine the pernicious aspects of the DV lottery on the African continent, on Africa's emancipation, and on the development of Africa in all its forms. We are faced with a situation where we are exhibiting a perfect example, an epitome of despair. That today, slavery and slave trade has become modern, because in the former, people were sequestrated, people were beaten, they were in chains, and then they were taken through ships to the foreign nations. We know the history. We don't want to dust archives of exasperating memories. And then now we are still having that slavery and slave trade, but now in the situation where the prey is willingly offering himself to the predator. This is DV lottery. Amongst other lottery and scholarships and other things, especially when we don't harness it in a way that it can bring forth or push forth the agenda of nation building for African nations. So this time around now, you go to Douala, the cities in Douala, in Boya, in fact, in all the cities around for Cameroon, for those who are in Cameroon, and as I hear with the other African countries, you see a massive mobilization of persons, you know, to play so that they can live from hellfire into paradise. What happened? That we are now living from our own home, hellfire into paradise. If you look at it economically speaking, this is a brain drain policy. Selecting the highly skilled persons from the African countries and sending them into those countries. If you do if you take some technical studies in the United States, you will discover that most of the developments that are being done are not really done by the indigenes, by those who were actually born Americans. You have the Indians there, you know, you have the Moroccans there, you have the Africans there of all nations. When they discover, because you have been made a national person, the glory comes down to the United States, in fact to America at the end of the day. Economically speaking, it's a brain drain that selects the highly skilled persons to go and boost labor force, to go and ensure the youthfulness of the population pyramid, and also use it for political implications such as, you know, feeding somebody, taming somebody, and then tomorrow now you use them to fight against their motherland. We have seen situations where it is people who have gone through such means and asylum and other things that, you know, starts being the architects and the builders, you know, and the forerunners of the political implications, like for example destabilizing their own proper country, just to avoid the least scenarios that may make emotions to flare. Now when you look at it too from a sociological point of view, a cultural point of view, it's a loss of tradition. Cultural hereditary is threatened. We have now all sorts of persons, because if you look at the DV lottery, you are taken and then you are sent there. After some time, you have to get now what we call a permanent residence. And that permanent residence, you know, is what they call a green card, if I'm not mistaken. In fact, you get a green card at the end of the day. But how many of them do really get a green card at the end of the day? Very few get a green card at the end of the day. It is those persons in there who are highly skilled and who serve the agenda, the hidden agenda, I call it the hidden agenda, of these cause that are being kept at the end of the day. We lose people because of over-immigration, excessive immigration, and then you have a final situation where people go to, the highly skilled persons that can change the nation find themselves changing another nation, working in another vineyard as a laborer. It's a really sad situation, but the blame cannot be given only to the people. And I'm sure that in order to dive into it, I would prefer that the other panelists should intervene first, and then I will come back on that aspect. Okay, exactly. So before I get to you now, Dr. Ndimancho, to understand, who should be blamed, for the fact that African leaders are not making good use of the resources, the human resources they have at their disposal, and of course, a nation like the United States of America, decides to randomly select people to help. Who should be blamed if the African governments were unable to make good use of their human resources?
Well, I think that we ourselves are to blame, and when I would say we ourselves, I don't place the blame principally on our governments, because for some reason, in recent past, we've heard African youths blaming, lampooning their government and saying they didn't do this. This is the cause of them doing this, and they are leaving Africa because of this. Their government has done this and that. But I think that we have gone past that kind of blame game. I even think that the African youths are to blame for what is happening. Because if your father made a mistake by not providing you that enabling environment because of his limitation, and then you come up and you are much more aware of what is supposed to be done, and you vehemently refuse to take responsibility to change what is supposed and what was supposed to have been changed, and you want to follow with that queer, and want to queer up with the mistakes of your fathers, and then you keep on laying the blames. It's just like, let me take a very common example, like our own villages. You know, I made a sample with some youths in Cameroon, for example, and they kept on saying the elders of their village have failed them because they have not led them into green light. They kept on blaming the elders of their village and said they have not led them out of their poverty. And I asked myself, but are the elders the ones who have led you out of the poverty that you have yourself in? You have yourself to blame. Now, look at this issue of migration, living out of the African continent, living out of African countries. There is what I call the push and the pull factors. You know, there is actually something that pushes people to live out of their individual countries. And let me not say, for most part of it, it is not poverty. It is not poverty. There is this insatiable desire for people to enjoy the amenities of other people who have been independent for more than 200 years. Let me tell you, people want to enjoy the graciousness, the Acadian life of the Americans who have been independent for more than 200 years. Remember that they have struggled. The Americans have struggled. And people are refusing to struggle to make up their countries to be competitive with the American society. There is what we call, you know, in this world of today, there's globalization, you know, and with globalization, there's what we call competition. And when I saw African countries actually excited about the issue of globalization, and I was asking myself, but you are happy. What is it that you are going to compete with the other countries? And I thought that it is an opportunity for them to close in, you know, and actually be able to reassert that identity that they have. Because let me tell you, we are a blessed continent.
But in essence, the blessing has not been decentralized in such a way that everyone can tap from the blessing. And that's why young people are living. What do you have to tell a young man doctor that has graduated from school and wants to have a job, drops his or her application in various companies, and people are requesting for some kind of immoral pay before the young man can be able to have a job, tries to write public examinations, but cannot succeed into any of those schools because probably he or she does not have a grandfather, you know, or someone in the government. So what do you expect the person to do?
I am happy that you're asking that question to me. I'm an educationist. I will tell you that our educational system has failed. Has failed, why? They are not the teachers themselves who have failed, per se. It is because we teach students to come out to be teachers. We teach students to come out to be teachers. We don't teach students to come out and invent. Can you imagine an agricultural student who is formed in a very, very technical, highly qualified institution, comes out, and then the next day you find him in the political capital with a fire in his armpit, going from ministry to ministry, looking for a job?
But if you don't have the capital to invest in agriculture, and the banks are not, the banks cannot give you capital without collateral security.
Mr. Bo, this is what we are missing out. The capital is not just about money. There is quite a lot about capital, which is not just about money. The first capital is human capital. Let me tell you. First of all, let me blame us, even the teacher in the first place. You have a teacher who teaches agriculture and he doesn't even have a small farm behind his house. All his lesson ends in the classroom. So, a student who grows up with that kind of a teaching, who actually inculcates that kind of knowledge, and taking an example from the teacher, would actually think that to set a farm, you need to go to the bank and borrow money. You do not need that. The first capital should be you. Have you started something? How many youths do start something and at the end they do not succeed? Let me tell you, the issue is about actually daring. We have refused to dare. The world is changing today because of the zest, because of the anxiety of the youth. And that is why you find that we left from one social tool to the other, from Yahoo, Messenger to this, Facebook, WhatsApp, and all of those things, Twitter and all of those things, it is because of the anxiety of the youth of other countries, not the youth of African countries. And the youth of other countries want to remain at the level of consumption. Let me say, we have refused, we have ourselves to blame, because we think that we need government to come and push us to do what we're doing. And that is why the new era youth for Africa, which I stand to represent, and I want to represent it wholeheartedly to say that we, the youth, have failed. And that one of the most interesting, one of the things that we ask the youth to do is to leave the blame game, get to work. If you have conceived something, start doing it. Most youths have been assisted because they started doing. You are not assisted to start doing. You are assisted because you started doing. If you do not start doing, nobody comes to assist you. And that is why we ask the youth to start doing, and the government will certainly come to your aid. That's
just 30 seconds, just before you Professor Mac.
Yeah, I know, okay. Because, but it's very important. My only problem with Dr. Ndimancho is that I feel a bit that you have been, you are not impartial in your arbitration on this issue. Since you linked the massive exodus of the youth to employment, I think unemployment, it is good that you attack, in fact, you point out every person who is responsible for this.
No, we are coming to that.
Yes, because you have identified the students. I want to say this. There are 5 pillars in the education system. You have the students, you have the teachers, you have the curriculum, you have the government, that is the state itself, and then you also have the parents. All of these 5 people are to blame. Now, from what you are saying, you have pointed out the, how can I call it, the unproductivity of our curriculum. Because when you look at the kind of education is supposed to help the students, empower them so that they can change their immediate environments. That is why there are some subjects that you teach in schools and people are asking, like, what is the use of the subject? It's not that the subject is not important, but relative to that environment, that subject is really not necessary. So you're supposed to be answering that particular area.
Of course, we'll be coming back to that in part
I think that we should come on it because the arbitration has been
It
impartial.
was just introductory statement.
Yeah, it's
introductory statement.
I think we have a
we're laying the foundation stone. Let's get to Professor Mac, and let's not forget that we have one of our guests in the United States. Immediately Professor Mac speaks, we'll hand over the microphone to Nchindo Christaian. Let's not marginalize him because he is not in the studio. So Nchindo Christaian, I will make sure that everyone has equal time to speak. Professor Mac, of course, when you listen to Ndimancho, Dr. Ndimancho, you have the impression probably that our youths in Africa are not lazy. They are very lazy. They are not taking the bull by the horn. But the same youths whom we consider to be very lazy here, once they move over to the United States, after 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, they start sending money home, they start buying cars, they start buying land, they become billionaires. So how come the same youths whom we consider as very lazy here and were unable to take the bull by the horn easily succeed over there in the United States in a matter of months?
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak towards that direction. You see, most of the times what happens is that governments actually set up systems to use in controlling and actually manipulating people. The United States, being one of the masters of control and manipulation, came up with a system. What is a government in the first place? Where you use the word government. When you cut it, you have govern and ment. And the word mente, because the word ment comes from the Greek English the French word mente, okay, which means the government actually is a control system. They are there to control the minds of the people. That is why when you leave Cameroon or Africa and you are going to the United States, when you hear that somebody bought a car, the person didn't buy a car. The person is living on borrow. That's it. He didn't buy a car. They promise him to buy a car, they give him a car, he needs to be paying as
Higher
the days
purchase.
are going. You heard that he's having a mortgage. That word in itself tells you that he engages in, he sentences himself to death. Mortgage. So when you look at the word in itself, you realize that it takes more than 30 years to pay a mortgage of a house. So you were in a sentence. You have been sentenced to death.
But at the end, you finally have the home.
Most at times, no. They come back and collect the house because you could not pay. Those are some of the things a lot of us, we don't know. But that is what is happening in the United States. You live with credit cards. You don't live with money in your pocket. In Africa, when you see somebody driving a car, he bought it with his money.
Yes.
If you see him living in a house, he built the house with his money. And this system is one of the things that is attracting a lot of young Africans to America. And you know, the job that they are looking for, it is really unfortunate how we train children and their target is a job. The purpose of education had never been to give jobs. The purpose of education is to inspire the acquisitor of that knowledge to become self-independent. So it is meant to inspire you to become productive. But what happens is the system put by the government is meant for one purpose: to control us. So at the end of the day, when they say you go to school, they didn't create that education to raise you up, to bring you to self-realization. They build a system that will hold your mind so that you can become a slave to the system. And that is what education is all about these days, to enslave persons. And so most of them sign. I am an educator myself. We take children, I have children whom I've sent to school, but I know exactly what the system is doing to them. And so I know that most of them will not come out and want to become productive and creative. They'll come and want to look for a job, because that is what they are learning in school. Why you need to have a job so that you can work to pay taxes to maintain the government. Don't forget that. And they forget to know that those who are entrepreneurs, those who engage in creating jobs, don't pay taxes. You'll be shocked to hear that. Okay. Because what happens is when he goes to school, he comes back, the government has programmed his mind in the system of education that when you come back, you need to go work. And so we go to work here in Africa. The pay package is lesser, but the living conditions around permit us to somehow cope with what we have, though we can't actually take care of
that's
everyone.
Not the situation on the ground, the Professor.
That is the situation on the ground.
People are
suffering because they want to suffer. When I speak like this, some people will say that maybe you have attained. No. People are suffering because they want to suffer, particularly in Cameroon. Cameroon is a nation where you can make it at any time.
Not so absolutely.
With all the bottlenecks.
I say you can make it at any time in Cameroon.
No.
The problem with most of us is that we have it in mind that I need this job to make it. So you go looking for a job. What about those who decide to create something? A lot of young persons.
What about the taxation system?
Have been,
you know,
see,
the amount of
taxes
people
will always be. We are not the first country to pay taxes. The United States is worse when it comes to taxes.
Exactly.
Okay,
so it is unfortunate that we as a people have decided to take the position of laziness. You asked me a question which I should answer before I give you back. Why is it that when they live here, we claim that they are lazy here, when they go there,
they succeed? In a matter of
they
months.
don't succeed because they enter into a system which permits them to get more lazy. But for them to be able to cope, because they need to show back home that something is happening, they take more than 4 jobs, which permits them to beat themselves up and down, morning to afternoon, even in the night. They don't have time to sleep. So they get into fatigue. That is the system that America has created, to sap out energy from you. And yes,
and they help people
when
back
you
home.
go there,
At the end
it
of the
doesn't
day,
help.
They help people back home.
If I may ask you a question, do you know how much remittance has been received home this year in 2022, from 2020 to 2022? If you go to a country like Senegal, the percentage of remittance that have entered Senegal is 13%. It is somehow encouraging for the economy. When it comes to Cameroon, it's 0.9%. But we have people,
because probably
we have people leaving the country every day. When they go there, what is the difference? What makes them to be unable to then send that remittance? They need to show up. You know, the Cameroonian youths like to show up. And so they stress up like that, then the small they can have, they send. But that is not even the problem. I am saying here that the whole idea of DV flying to the United States is not what is going to help any young African.
Maybe you learn, Prof, so that
yes.
we don't
it will
marginalize
never
our
help any
external
young
guests.
African, because you are selling out yourself into slavery. And that is why you say they are succeeding, but they work like slaves from morning till night. Ask most of them what they will tell you.
But they work hard. They're working hard.
That's not hard working. That's not hard working. There's a difference between hard work and enslavement.
Because at the end of the day, they don't call us back home to send them money.
Who
they
told
take
you
care
that?
of themselves.
There are families
Unless
that call back. There are
What?
individuals who call back, they need help.
Let's move over to the United States of America and get to Christaian, are you there?
Yes, I am there.
I know you've been following with a lot of attention the discussions here in the studio. I don't want to cue you to a particular question. I just want you to react to some of the perspective you've been listening to from our panelists here in the studio about life in the United States of America, the ability to succeed in Cameroon, in Africa, more than the United States, the fact that people live in debt on credit card, and that there's a lot of stress in the United States of America.
Yeah, Mr. Bo, thank you so much for the opportunity. You know, there are lies that we Africans tell ourselves every day. You know, first of all, my friend talked about people living in mortgage in America. I just want to say that people in Africa have already mortgaged their entire life. Now, let me first of all go to talk a little bit about the DV lottery, which we are so much concentrating on and blaming African youth who are trying to make a living. The DV lottery was started in 1995, and this was something that they say DV means diversity lottery, because America is no one's home. America is a country that takes people from all over the world, and when it comes to DV lottery, we have people playing from the 7 continents of the world, except Antarctica, which is a place where no one is permanently living. Now, when we are blaming Africans today, I understand that a majority of Africans have been, there's a mad rush in Africa where we have millions of Africans trying to come to the United States. Now, for us to sit here today and be blaming Africans is a very fatal mistake on our part. We have to, first of all, start attacking the cause or looking at the reason why Africans are not, or why many Africans are coming to the United States or to any other country. Mr. Bo, let me tell you something, or let me tell you guys something here in the studio today which you would like to hear. In 2019, I personally took statistics, and I discovered from the statistics that we got from Panama, Ecuador, Colombia, Costa Rica, or all the countries that lead up to the United States in South America, we had more than 300 Africans that were living every day and passing through the forest. And this is because life is not going in Africa. Now, I heard my learned colleague was talking about people being able to make it in Cameroon at any time. I was like asking myself, which Cameroon are you talking about? Which Cameroon do you say? Like, are we sending African youth on a suicide mission? Is that why we are here? We are not here to send African youth on a suicide mission. We are talking about African youth, blaming them. They are leaving Africa. They are not in Africa to change Africa. Change which Africa? How many African youths have fought to change Africa, and how many of them are in prison today? You cannot change Africa. If you discover that you cannot change Africa, why in Africa? Get out of Africa and change Africa out of Africa.
Really?
We are empowering Africa economically and even changing Africa politically. Why out of Africa? Because most of the people who have struggled to change Africa today either end up in cells or they are being killed. So these are statements that we first of all need to start addressing here today. And then it's very wrong again to start talking about people who work several hours in America. I mean, we should not discourage African youth from traveling or playing the TV lottery. I have personally been encouraging a lot of them to play and get out of Africa any slightest chance that they have. These are not things that we should be talking about today. People work 4 jobs everywhere in the world, even in Africa, there are people that work those jobs. And in America here, we have people who work 8 hours a day and people who have less hours. Now, how can you begin to blame a system and talking about taxation and all that? Cameroon has taxes and America has taxes. The taxation system in America, as we are talking about, goes back to the citizen. This is not money that goes to the government's pocket. Now let's just imagine, look at Africa entirely, and then look at the system in Africa, look at the roads that they're using in Africa. These are roads that were constructed, most of them were constructed during the independence period. Now you say that you can sit in Africa, make it in Africa at any time in Africa. How many people are genuinely making it in Africa? Like, how many people? These are questions that you have to start asking yourself, because when we sit here, these are lies that we tell ourselves every day. And when we keep telling these lies, we are sending youths to go where they are not supposed to go, like to telling youths to go and die.
Mr. Buddha is a story.
Africa,
you cannot say they are telling lies.
We are talking about here.
Let him finish talking. You're going to have it there.
No, let me learn. When you were talking, I gave you enough time to talk and learn, right? I will talk and learn. Because I believe that we all have the opportunity to talk and say what we are saying here. Now, let's look at the political system in Africa and look at the economy. First of all, when one of the panelists today was talking about push factors and pull factors. Now, when we keep on blaming these Africans, first of all, how many of them travel? Millions. So you keep on blaming millions of people every year for traveling. Have you looked at the reason why they are traveling? The economy of the United States has been pulling in a lot of people because the economy is buoyant and these people are enjoying the economy. Now, some of us who blame or keep on blaming the United States, like talking about taxation, talking about hard labor and all, why is it that people who come to the United States never go back to Africa? Now, it's just like sitting on earth and talking about life in heaven, you know, because have you ever seen someone leaving America to come back to Africa because there were so many hard jobs or because the person was working like there is no money? You don't see that. The day you see people leaving America and coming back to Africa, meet me, and then you have a justification to tell me that people should not travel to America. There is constant migration from Africa to America because people see that life in Africa is a living hell and life in America is heaven for them. I am not saying that we should not change Africa. I'm not here to say that I have been fighting to change Africa, but all I'm saying is that we should not kill ourselves in an attempt to change Africa. If you see that you are able to live and make it elsewhere, allow youth to live and make it elsewhere. Now, most people who even come up with these theories that Africa is good, you can make it in Africa at any time. I have had cases like that, and some of them even contact me at the background and ask me, how do I do to get to America? No, I became, sometimes I'm so angry because what happens is that you are like deceiving people not to go and fetch for their lives, and then you sit behind and struggle to get out of Africa. Now, let me tell you that if the doors of Africa were open today and they say that everybody should leave, I'm telling you, not up to 10 million people will be left in Africa. Look at the ministers in Africa who are even making it. Look at the presidents who are making it. How many hours do they even spend in Africa? How many of their kids are in Africa? How many of them school in Africa? The educational system is a trap. When you begin to grow in life, you even start thinking about your family, start thinking about your kids. Do you want these children to continue to go to school and study how to draw insects? Do you want their children to continue to go to school and study engineering and they cannot be able to build a plane? Do you want these people to go to school and study agriculture who do not own a farm? So you have to ask yourself this question. Begin to think about your kids even tomorrow. Don't begin to, because you have to plan for them. And this is why most of the people even travel out of Africa. I personally, I can make it in Africa because I know that the people who are hardworking will make it. But which level of success will I attain in Africa? What about the kids and what about the family I'm planning to build tomorrow? What system has been built for them? What about the roads in Africa that are a death trap? Many people die every day because of accidents. Everything has been owned by the political class, and people keep on dying on a daily basis, and you keep on encouraging Africans to sit in Africa and die? No, hell no. That is a fallacy.
Okay.
You have to understand that these people are leaving Africa because they have realized that Africa.
Maybe you land, Christaian. Maybe you land so that I come back to the studio. Thank you so much for giving your own perspective. Of course, those that are watching, you can send in your own, if you listen to any allegations or something that you think you need to give your own opinion about, just send me an SMS or send a message on WhatsApp to give your own perspective about the topic. To say here that they are looking at issues, we are looking at issues from both angles. Christaian is talking as an African who is living in the United States. Professor Mac, Dr. Ndimancho, and Yagaka Gabriel are talking from the African perspective. At the end of the day, the people can get all the information they want, and this will help them to make a decision about their lives. Let me take some messages coming in from guests. Good afternoon, my media prime. I am Kenzong Brandon. I extend greetings to you all in the studio, especially to Dr. Gabriel Yagaka. Well, to my own point of view, the living standard here in Cameroon in terms of GDP is very low as compared to that of the US. So this DV lottery gives the youth a platform for them to see it as a great opportunity to change their status. I get this other message. Good afternoon to my media prime. I am Kenzong Brandon. I think this is a second message. Okay. Good afternoon to you, sir. There is no way you can succeed in Africa no matter how creative you are without capital. Paul in Bafusam, who adds, if you have a way to get out, get capital before coming back, then good. If you have a way to go out of Africa and get capital before coming back, then it's good. Mr. Christaian Ngong is saying the gospel truth. Of course, this other message coming in from someone in the United States who says, not everyone live on mortgage. It is only optional for those who cannot pay in cash. So that is a false narrative. And to add, you can't collect a car on credit and ship to Africa because the company you took that credit from will still hold the lease of that car. Every car sent to Africa was bought in cash. So we are happy to pay the taxes because the money is used to maintain excellent public facilities for the people. Tell Professor Mac that it is only after this war started that people stopped sending money to Cameroons, and also because they stopped coming to Cameroon as it was before the war. So those are messages coming in too. I think let me get to SMS and see if there are other messages. Of course, let's get this other message which says, good afternoon to you all in the studio. Please, we can't get you guys well because we can't get you guys well because the speaker is not sounding well. I'm sure probably the Mr. Ngong Christaian Wilson's on Skype. I think the sound was not that bad. So sometimes the sound on Skype cannot be the same like the sound in the studio. So you kindly pardon us for that. This other message. Good day to all of you in the studio, especially to Dr. Ndimancho Michael. To me, the DV lottery is another way through which the USA is using to remove all the manpower from Africa and another nation for her own benefit. There is nothing like a free lunch from any Western. Nothing talk less of the United States. They Westerners don't like us. It's just because they can't do without us, as to say they need us to come develop their nation. This is Bob Coco from Bamenda. Back in the studio, Yagaka Gabriel, I think you have the mic right now. After listening to Christaian Nchindo and listening to the other panelists, where do you think it is easier for Africans to succeed, in Africa or in the United States? You've listened to both sides of the story.
Well, you can succeed anywhere. And permit me, please, I really have to say this. I want to try to be scientific in my contribution and to be very impartial in referring this match that is going on. We need to identify where exactly the problem is coming from so that we can propose solutions. And if you look at the preponderance of immigrants, the preponderance of immigrants are seeking for greener pastures. When you talk about greener pastures, you're talking predominantly, in fact, in the main sense of the word, you're talking about job, getting a good salary, financial growth and all those things to be able to have a successful life, in quotes. So this is what the preponderance of immigrants are looking for, greener pastures. That is why there is excessive immigration from hell to heaven, in quotes. That is why there is excessive immigration. But why should people do that? This is also due to failure, you know, of the educational system. As I said, there are 5 pillars of the educational system. The parents, the teachers, the students, the curriculum, and the state. All of them are to blame. The first thing are the parents. You know, most of the people, Dr. Miles Monroe used to say, when the purpose of a thing is not known, abuse is inevitable. Most people are suffering really not because, you know, of all of these things that were raised, but because people don't align with their purpose. Einstein says, everybody is a genius, but if you want to judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, he will spend his entire life thinking that it is foolish. The parents force children to study things that are not within their circles of influence. You find a child that can be a good musician studying mathematics, or a child that is good in sports and maybe not good in the Zingraph activities, you know, being forced to do some kind of
what do you mean by Zingraph activities?
I mean literature, the Shakespearean, you know, the Shakespearean exercise. He's not good in that, or let me say within the 4 walls of the classroom, being forced, for example, or being rated as dull because he didn't score a 25 on 30 in economics. This is what happens when parents force children, you know, to do things that is per their own love. They are to blame, starting from this particular point, because there is already a shift in the circle of influence. When you leave from them, you go to the teachers, which we are here. We are educationists, stigmatizing the people. You find a student in class whom you notice as an educationist, not in his right circle, you know, being stigmatized by the teacher as dull, being labeled as dull, you know, sent out of the classroom. You hear comments like, you know, just go to the farm and, you know, look for something to do, or outside there, or some kind of jobs. This is why now Robert Kiyosaki says, he has a book, why the C students, I mean the A students work for the C students and the B students work for the government. Because those C students left the classroom and they found as refuge, you know, facing life with all the alacrity and with all, you know, the energy that they have. And indeed, when, you know, you'll never know how far you can go until going is the only option you have. Now, when you shift now from this, you go now to the students, as Prof said, the problem with the educational system is the misapprehension of its purpose. We go to school, education is a means to an end. It is not an end in itself. So when you find students looking at it as a means to an end, as an end in itself, that is why they are complaining. Oh, the government hasn't recruited me. Oh, there is no employment. Oh, the economy is not good. All these complaints is because they thought that by the time they are finishing education, life is going to be an El Dorado for them. This is one of the things that is causing, that is, you know, accelerating their laziness that you see Prof and Dr. Ndimancho were pointing out. The misapprehension of the purpose. Please, you go to school to be inspired and come back to make better the environment that gave you that opportunity to do it. Now, when you shift from them now, you go now to the curriculum, as I was pointing out earlier. The subjects that are being taught, the discipline. In China, for example, they create a faculty of extraction of minerals because they have something, you know, that they want to do immediately after that. So by the time you are leaving out, I mean, by the time you are a graduate of that faculty, you are going to work directly on the field. We even have a problem of food in Cameroon. When I say food, I mean, like, not everybody, you know, is really feeding at ease. Instead of pushing more people into agriculture, we have more people, please, with all due respect to subjects, we have more people in some disciplines that really do not touch us, or that we are not emancipated enough to be able to make it, you know, or to be able to instrumentalize it in our community. So those subjects should be displaced and attention given to what is necessary. That's financial education. This is one of the reasons that Robert Kiyosaki is pointing out as, you know, why Africans are failing, because of the lack of financial education, in fact, financial illiteracy. Now, when you come to the final, which is where I am pointing and I'm blowing the whistle in order to referee this match clearly, it is the government. The government has an essential role to play, because if the policies that are enacted, if the policies that are put in place are not the ones that favor entrepreneurship, are not the ones that favor employment or employability of the citizens and all the rest, then you're going to make the zone, you're going to label it as a flea zone. It is at this stage that I will hang on to label the government as belligerent. Belligerent in terms of, or to label the government as one that is pushing for the agenda of the DV lottery. Because when you finish, you graduate, you try getting a job and you don't have a job, then you leave and maybe try entrepreneurial activities, and you are marred by shackles, impediments, you are infringed in the whole process by policies, taxation, and all sorts of things that are going to block you. You find now DV lottery as a lender of last resort. This is the tragedy that we are facing now.
Especially if you're a medical doctor, for instance, medical doctor who is earning $200 at the end of the month, and you see that there's an opportunity for you to, of course, it's $200,000,
yes,
maybe $300, and then you see that in the United States you can earn maybe $5,000.
Well, if you go, I would not like to talk about medical doctors because I think they are trained for free. I think they are trained for free in Cameroon. Yes, because you pay 50,000, they give you. But I mean, I think they are trained for free. They cannot even pay for it. So I think the government is just trying to ask them to join hands together with them to build. I don't want to go into that. I'm not saying that their salary is enough. I'm not talking with all due respect to medical doctors.
Okay.
But I think that this is the cause. I mean, the government needs to make the environment one that is conducive enough for people to see a reason, in staying back and building. And I see this effort to salute the great men, because I already have two in the studio. They could have been in the US too. They could have been in Canada or in other places to see how they also greener, make green. Dr. Ndimancho is already green. I don't know what he's going there to go. I'm saluting them to, it's something you need to give a standing ovation to the Africans that are staying back to build a nation, because I would tell you the environment is not conducive enough.
That's right.
Your time has, thank you so much, Yagaka Gabriel. Dr. Ndimancho, now we have presented based on your own analysis than you and Professor Mac, those who are watching, especially Europeans, who have the impression that Africa is the El Dorado where people should come to succeed. So, are you sure that if we start an African DV lottery in quotes, if it exists, how many people will battle, would rush to play the African DV lottery? Since you guys claim that it's the El Dorado.
Well, we can't start any DV lottery now. What we're merely saying is that we have the unhatched facilities, amenities in Africa. There are amenities in Africa, but they are still unhatched. And that is why I'm asking that we join hands to hatch these amenities. And that is a fact. When did America start the DV lottery, diversity lottery? It is not long ago, 1995. I mean, how long has America been existing? For more than 200 years. So there is really nothing to compare here. There is really nothing to compare. And I like the submission of Mr. Gabriel. It is fine. Looking from the perspective of perhaps the way, our responsibility at individual circles. All of us have the responsibility to build this country. Be the student, be the teacher, be the government. All of us need to put hands on deck. I just want to talk about our panelist who was in the US there. And
Nchindo
Christaian.
Christian.
Mr. Nchindo Christian. Of course, see, nobody hates good life. Everybody likes Acadian life. I mean, that is a fact. But the issue is, my problem is, will you want to go and enjoy the life that other people have created and then leave your own fallow?
Some of them are building back home. Some of them are there to tap from them and build back home. That's what they're doing, Doctor.
Yeah, that is true. They are building back home, but I think that they are doing, in a very, very capitalistic way. Join the government, build our society. Don't come and enter your small village and then try to, put, yeah, it's still development at your level of the community because at least they see buildings.
Of course.
But how many of us, actually, the diaspora that we know, join hands with the government to do this? Most 80% of diasporas are activists who are against their government and against development in Africa. That is a fact. Now, let me tell you, you have said, here many people say that Africans, they live in the US and then they can come back here. It is a lie. They are most African, I know of many. Let me tell Mr. Christian that we who are here interact with Africans who are in America than they who are there. Yes. I want to let him know, it's a fact. He cannot refute that fact. Me, I interact with Cameroonians in the US more than Mr. Chindi, who is there in the US. And what the testimony I've got from many of them is that sometimes they become so suffocated with this debt until they cannot even come back to Cameroon. Yes. Some of them find themselves with nothing. And then they feel that coming back to Cameroon is a shame. What did they come to show proof of? So the only thing is to stay on and on and on, and many of them remain there, they never come back. That is true, that's a fact. Don't mind the flashy thing that they tell us. And then the people, somebody travels to the US and next day you call and say, there your country, how is your country faring? It is just an issue of ego and pride. Empty pride. And I'm telling you, empty. And they come here, we take them and boot them out. The issue is that we have refused, and the Prof Mac was talking about. I mean, I know the people go to the US and the next day they are faring well. They are sending. I mean, it is not that they are working. I mean, that they are better off than here. It is because here in Cameroon, what happened? Just go at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon in Cameroon. You find youth already in bars, drinking, boozing. But in the US, at least the time for work. This is time for work in the US. But come to Cameroon, you see what would happen? Come on Saturday now. Everybody makes plans at from 1 o'clock is boozing program. But where do you see that in Europe and America? That is just the fact that we have refused to change our own country. We think that the way we can change our country by boozing. Somebody is proud to say that he drank 12 bottles of beer yesterday. And for him, it's pride. But when you go to the US, you follow the rules. But in Africa, you refuse to follow the rules. In the US, you cannot pee in the street. But when you come here, you run everywhere because you find that we are a dumping ground. I think that is just a fact. I mean, we need to be very, very careful about that. Europe and America has discovered our worth. If it is not DV lottery, it is a commonwealth in terms of culture. It is a francophonie in terms of culture. All of these things, they are coming to tap from us and take to them because they have seen what we are able to do. And our government has not been fast enough to discover that they can invest in this youth. I'm not supporting the government 100%. I know the government has its own fault. Mr. Gabriel said it, that all of us are involved. The government, me as a teacher, you as a student, the curriculum, all of us are involved. And I say in this term, let the government be able to handle that with care. You need to handle that with care. And the only thing which we're talking about is, now, the thing that we need to put our energy together and build Africa. Because if we keep on indulging in things that do not matter, in things that do not build, do you know why? So who was saying that most of these children, even of ministers, are in abroad. Do you know why they are abroad? Most of them are sending their children abroad for security reasons. It's not because they don't have the amenities here. They have the money, they have everything that they need here, but they send their children abroad for security reasons. Most of our brothers and sisters are talking about the push factor. Most of them have committed crimes here. They are people who cannot no longer live in their individual countries. And that's why when they go abroad, the only thing they indulge is in condemning their home government because they are ex-convicts, they are committed crimes, and they are looking back in anger. And they cannot come back. And that's it. Okay. The personal non-dogs are in their country.
Doctor, you have 1 minute to land. So that
is right.
Yeah, we have 1 minute to land, Doctor.
I know, that's what I'm saying. We need to come together. Now, you talk about even building back in Africa, that we send money back in Africa. Look at the exchange rate. Look at the currency exchange range. Mr. Bo, when you go to America and you have $100, $100 is equal to how much in francs CFA? You send $100 here, maybe it's about 55,000 francs. Well, only $100. Only $100 is about 55,000 francs. When you send those money because they have a higher exchange rate and you work and they pay, you think that you are doing better. Meanwhile, we who are here, we will even work harder. Because if somebody has 200,000 francs in America and I have 100,000 francs, I am better than him because I work harder than him. That is a fact. And that is why these are some of the facts that we need to accept and say that people are living out of Africa to Europe and America, not because really we are bad, it's because they have refused. It's a state of escapism, I'll even say it. There's a state of escapism, and let's just face the fact.
Thank you, Doctor. Let me take these messages that are coming in before I hand over the mic to Professor Mac, and we move over to Christaian, who is boiling over there in the United States to give his own views. Hello to everyone. I am Che Sunday. The reason why many youths are traveling out via the DV lottery is because the country has not empowered the youths, especially in the technical department. That is, the number of technical institutions are limited, and a limitation has been placed in all state institutions in the form of concours, which is like entrance examinations, because maybe those in English-speaking countries will not understand. This limits the number of skilled personnel in the country. Okay, I take this message too. Good afternoon to you guys. I extend greetings. I think the government, particularly the legal arm, are to blame. The minimum pay wage for a country like Cameroon is about 37,000 francs CFA. With this money, can you pay rent and feed yourself for a month? Whereas with the minimum pay in the United States, you can feed yourself, pay rent, and save some money. Employers exploit employees in Africa, and nothing is done about it. Manpower, money, material, and machines are the four main resources. You may have the human resources, but where do you get the others to become entrepreneurs? You can't be granted a loan because you lack collateral security. And of course, this other message too, which is coming too, which says, at the end of the year, when everyone in America file their taxes, the government will return most of the taxes collected from those who are making less than $100,000 back to them in cash. Besides this message to you, Professor Mac, banks can only give you mortgage for a house and cars only if they look into how much money you are making and they are sure that you can pay, and that can only be about 30 to 35% of your annual income. Without so, they won't give you a loan. At the end of the day, who doesn't borrow? Do you say we don't borrow in Africa? Are we not funded by Njangis?
Let me say something.
Our microfinance institutions.
The problem is not borrowing. The problem is for what purpose you are borrowing. If I need to borrow money to pay a house, then I'm stupid. Borrowing money to invest and begin a business is wisdom. So it is not a problem of borrowing. It is for what purpose you are borrowing. Anyway, you see, we have actually begun discussing on something that is so pertinent towards our own growth. The DV is not for Africans. It is meant as a means to actually enslave more Africans. Let me say this. If you go to look at the Africa has, I think, close to 60% youthful population. The United States does not have youth. You know why? They have a system of a system that permits that at least a person should have one, two, their children, they don't give birth to many children. And so it hinders them from having the manpower to work. And so in such a case, they are practically gradually losing their civilization because they do not have those two power, the different corporations they have created. And so coming to Africa with so-called DV is to select the best brains from this.
But it's random selection. The DV lottery, they don't sell. It's random. That's what they call it.
You think it's random? It's not random.
That's what is said. It is not.
I don't have any proof contrary to that, because let me just I cannot say what I cannot prove.
I don't want to cut Prof, but there's something here that I want to read. I'm looking for who is the author, but I don't know. I used to think it was the British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. There's nothing free in this world.
Yes.
It is only the matter of realization that if you are not paying for the product, then you are the product. So
that's true.
We are the products of the DV lottery. Why are these people looking for them?
So
why are they looking for Africans?
You know about the
that is why I'm saying that if you look at it, I am.
Do you know how many Africans have died?
Let me answer.
Died trying to go to Europe through the Mediterranean.
See, that is.
Prof, you have 3 minutes,
no,
so that we can have
my time.
You have 3 minutes.
You seize my time.
You have 3 minutes, Prof.
So look at it. When you follow what is in place right now and the way it is presented to us, it is like we are going there to just enter into luxury and start living fine. No. They are taking you to go work to empower their systems.
And also empower your country too.
You will never empower my country by taking away my person and then giving me a nationality. In Cameroon in the first place, we have a problem here, which I know it is, I call it a problem because we do not accept double nationality. And the moment you leave Cameroon through DV, you are not a Cameroonian anymore.
Yeah, you lose your nationality.
You lose your nationality as a Cameroonian. You are no more a Cameroonian. And that is a problem which some of us need to fight over. So you don't tell me, like my brother sat there and he's saying that life is good in America. It is not good. Most of he that is talking there knows very well that there is a life he cannot live because he needs to keep working to meet up. We're talking about taxes. You spoke about taxes. I said Cameroon pay taxes, but it is worse in the United States. They have sent messages saying that it is the taxes are meant to sustain the system. It's true, but that is the reason why they come to take you, so that their system can keep functioning. You need to work, because let me say this, in most of these countries, and I will say this all over, for those who go seeking for jobs, when you work, you pay how much percentage of your taxes? About 30% of your salary goes for taxes to 36%. For those who decide to say, okay, I'm a doctor, I don't need to go work, I need to create my enterprise. As you are working, you are paying 40% of your salary is going for taxes. So at the end of the day, you are not making money. You have to use 60% to take care of yourself, pay your other stuff.
Why then are those over there able to construct better houses, run better
because
and have
you can't compare a dollar with France CFA.
I just said it.
I mean, even what they do back home.
No, you can't compare a dollar with France CFA.
If
he suffers and suffers, he knows the only way for him to succeed is to exchange that dollar with France CFA. It will give him much money.
And they have perpetually put our currency down in order to thrive.
But there, the dollar cannot give him anything. He cannot build a house over there with a dollar, with the money he sends over here to build a house. And so in Africa, that is the reason why I still come back to tell you, Africa is preferred. Why? We still have everything. If he can sit over there after having stressed himself, he can own something there, but he can own it here because of what he had worked, then it tells him that Africa has more opportunities than over there. You
For
see,
example, if
my problem, Mr. Bo, you are
Prof.
pushing me severally from...
Okay, Prof. Land, Prof.
One of the things that we have as a problem is that we are encouraging a lot of young persons to take the wrong path, because might be we are saying we are suffering. Yes, there is suffering. There is suffering. That is not something that anybody should refuse. I will never even refuse it. But the question is, how do you come out from the suffering? Because suffering is a necessity.
It's part of life.
Created for life to be able to empower, to make an individual to come out. If you do not face challenges, you will never truly become who you are supposed to become. If you are always escaping, then you become a weakling. We do not need weaklings in Africa. We need persons who have the capacity to empower the economy. And he made mention of some stuff that I should talk about it.
One more minute, Prof.
Yes.
Yeah, one more minute.
Saying that somebody is lying.
He was not
That Cameroon,
no.
I'm not talking whether I spoke to who. To say that we are lying that you cannot make it in Cameroon is proof enough that he does not know. I am in Cameroon. I travel and come back to my country. I work here. I live here. And sincerely, I will make it here, and I am making it here. Let me use that word. So you don't say that we are deceiving Cameroonians. We are not deceiving them. We are simply saying, Africans, we need to suffer to build our own continent. It is true we have governments that, I don't know, they are high-minded. They sit in their government positions. They think that they are the gods of the nation. But no, we must get to the place where we self-realize to be able to transform our continent. We need the diaspora to be able to do it as well. And when I talk of the diaspora, I'm not only talking of those who left Cameroon or Africa and went. I'm talking of those who were carried out of Africa. Their grandparents were carried out of Africa as slaves.
Thank you.
We need them in order to build Africa so that Africa can meet up. The civilization that we need to build in Africa should not be a slavery civilization like the one that is in the United States, because the US can never succeed without slavery.
Thank you,
Let's
Prof.
be sincere.
Thank you, Professor Mark. Let's move over now to Nchindo Christaian in the United States. Now, Nchindo Christaian, I want you to react to some of the allegations you've heard in the studio, and then you come in to talk about what you think can be done, what you think those out of Africa can do to push for the development agenda in the continent. those that went to the United States through the DV lottery, how can they be helpful in the development of their home countries?
Okay, well, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you 5 on 5.
All right, thank you so much. Let me first of all just react to what Prof just said. You know, that we are having a lot of wrong information. That is the first thing, and that is what is killing us. Now, he says he's making it in Africa. I mean, congratulations. I mean, we do not say that someone cannot make it in Africa. I mean, if you are making it in Africa, I must congratulate you. You are a very hardworking person, and you are doing your best, and God is blessing you. But you have to understand that what we are saying is that the survival chance of making it in Africa is about 5%. So you should be congratulating yourself for being among the 5% people or less who are making it in Africa. In the same light, while congratulating yourself, also be very sincere to yourself and know what you have gone through before making it in Africa, and know that human beings are not of the same species as you are. There are people who have struggled very hard. Like they used to, when I was growing up, they used to say that some people were born with a golden spoon. You know, some had to fight to achieve the spoon. Like I used to believe that that golden spoon is not in Africa. In Africa, we are made to fight and get that golden spoon. So to get it is not very easy. And then, Prof, you talked about the DV lottery being like it's a random selection, that they select just the finest brains. And this is totally false, because this is being done the way that the software is being set to operate. It selects randomly, and it doesn't need to know which certificate you have or not. And this is, I mean, this is clear fact, because most of the people who win the lottery to come are not those who have the highest level of education in Cameroon or the finest brains. So you should be very aware of that. And then secondly, another thing I will need to clarify, you said that when somebody leaves the comes here on DV lottery, the person is no longer a Cameroonian. This is totally false. When you win the DV lottery and come to America, you are being granted the permanent resident card, which we know as the green card because of its green nature. With this permanent card, you are the citizen of your country. You are not a citizen of the United States. And after 5 years of staying in the United States, you have the choice to become a citizen of the United States or not. This is entirely your choice. So coming here on DV lottery doesn't make you an American. So this is a fact that we need to also be clear. Just one that we should be very clear to make sure that we are giving the public the right information, and also to be sure we don't discourage those who really are willing or sincere enough or thinking of taking this venture. You talked about taxes, like being 30% and medical doctors being 40%, and this again is false. Taxes are being calculated under the same basis. The only difference is that when you earn 400,000 a year and another person earns like 200,000, your percentage is higher, because if we're taking like 25%, one person's 25% of 400,000 will be more than the person's 25% who is earning 100,000. Now, let's talk about why Africa is so bad. I am an African. I will die an African. I love Africa. Africa is my home. And I am not, I sincerely value and I cherish everybody who is fighting so hard to make it in Africa, who are actually making it, or even not making it in Africa. They are fighters, because first of all, it's not easy. I have fought in Africa. I have done my best to succeed in Africa, but I was unfortunately not one of the people who could make it in Africa, and that is why I decided to leave Africa. Now, the doctor said that he has been talking with a lot of people in America, more than I even do. Yeah, that can be a fact. I cannot dispute that. The fact that I'm in America does not mean that I get to talk to a lot of people. But I want to let you know that there is hardship everywhere. Life is difficult everywhere. People used to have this wrong information that immediately you step into America, you succeed. No. America just means that you have been given, they call America a dreamland, meaning that that is a place that you have the opportunity to achieve your dreams. Not that when you come, the dreams come to you, you still have to fight in America to succeed, just like you fight everywhere. So if you happen to find yourself in America and you are sleeping, you don't work hard like you work in Africa, then I don't see a reason why you should make it in Africa. Most of those people who tell you that life is difficult in America, I cannot go back home because of worry of the other, ask the people, why can they not make it? America has that opportunity for everyone. Now, for example, the city where I'm living here in Rochester, you can find out from everywhere, employment is 100%, which means that companies come to you to look for jobs, to ask for you to work. And if you sincerely work and pay taxes and do everything, you will still have money to save in your account. Now, is it good to work hard and have the money, like work day and night, have the money, or to go into bars and drink day and night? I also heard you talk about people in Africa, like when you come to America now, we should be at work, going to work, and people in Africa are drinking in bars, and this makes the difference. Have you asked yourself this question? Why is it that these people keep drinking in Africa, while the ones in America keep working? This is because the people in Africa do not have anything to do. They have struggled, they have done their best to get this job, and they have not gotten them. And the only thing that has been put in at their disposal by the government is those drinks that they are drinking. Now, I would like to take the last point here before I hand over the microphone. I want to talk about the two systems, the economy of Africa and the economy of America. I studied social security in Cameroon. I'm a social security administrator from Cameroon, and social security works in a way where taxes or the income is being taken from the wealthy people and given to the low-income people. This is what we call distribution of income to create an equilibrium. But instead, in Africa, income is taken from the poor and given to the rich, and this is why Africa keeps suffering. But in America, they take this income from the rich and give it to the poor, and this actually balances the equilibrium. This is why it is so difficult for you to see someone in America who is completely wallowing in poverty, because the government makes sure that income is being taken from those who earn high and given to those who are earning very low. And this is the difference, because they are trying to actually balance the economy in America. So the economy of Africa has been made to fit only the political class and those who are actually making it. And if you see these youths with degrees leaving Africa and dying in the forest, this is because they have looked left and right and there is nowhere to go. So we should not be blaming them. Thank you.
Thank you, Nchindo Christaian. Guys, we have 3 minutes to run up. Unfortunately, you know, we started with 10 little minutes late, and I think it was more of 3 against 1, or more. Yagaka was more in the middle, more of 2 against 2. But I think it's time for us to close the program. So let's just get the last, conclusion from Yagaka Gabriel. Your advice to Africans who are playing the DV lottery and to our African youth in general.
Well, the advice is borrowing from the horse's mouth, taken from the horse's mouth. Mr. Nchindo, who is there, he has already told us that it's hard everywhere. So you can make it here, you can make it there. It depends now on the spirit that is animating you.
And where you want to make it.
And where you want to make it. That's the first thing. And then to the government, you have an indispensable role to play in alleviating this particular issue. The government has to play a lot of role, especially in making the environment very conducive in terms of policies, conducive even in terms of sensitization, so that people can love their fatherland, can develop the spirit of patriotism to work. And just to align a political implication that we may not see. Most of the times, as Mr. Nchindo tried to refuse, even though he said they don't select the highly skilled and all those people. But what is the best way to ensure neocolonialism or political hegemony? What is the best way? The best way is that you identify potential people who can change their nation. You bring them to you. You do a brain drain, you do a brainwash. You make them citizens of your area. You identify the future Thomas Sankaras, the future people who can make Africa to change, through not only DV lottery, but scholarship, fellowships, all those things. They are political mechanism, political cancers, to weaken Africa's emancipation. And one of them is also the DV lottery. They are not the only ones who need a labor force. We too need a labor force. There are plantations there that are virgin. We too need a labor force. Now you buy one tomato for 200.
So let us launch our own lottery.
So let us launch our own lottery. Internal lottery. Maybe living from Gokutunja now into Douala. It's also another lottery. So that's just my
Dr.
point.
Ndimancho, 1 minute for your conclusion.
You said 3 minutes.
No, it's the end. Yeah, we don't have time.
The time is really too short.
Yeah.
But there is one thing, because people keep on talking about success. What is success? What do you consider success? When is somebody really successful? Because what I see is, it appears as if success
to me is the ability to live your purpose.
It's relative. Well,
because that is still too limited.
Okay.
What purpose do you have? Is it the purpose is amassing what and amassing? It's still a purpose, right?
Yeah.
So really, what I think is, because when people keep on talking about success and those who have gone over there who are successful, that begins to come to my mind to ask this kind of question. And then, because I mean, it's like in comparing them with people who are here to say that they are not successful. Yeah, that is the issue. Because and I've seen that it is an African problem. That is because when I talk success, they talk in terms of money. The yes is about amassing wealth. They live here and go to Europe. They own 3 cars or 4 cars, and then even the Americans where in America where they live, the Americans they don't own more than 1 car. That is also one of the causes. You see, means that sometimes we do not really know what we are looking for. We do not really know the concept of what we really.
If that makes them happy, if they can buy 10 cars, I don't see any problem with that.
You don't see any problem. Well, that is true.
If that makes them happy, it's their money.
Successful in procreation.
In procreation, well, so that is it. Here, our beds are very fertile. The foot of the loin here. I mean, of course.
Doctor, your time is up.
Okay, no, let me come. And I must say that how have we become suddenly so envious of the Americans that in the 16th to the 19th century, they were like a nightmare. I mean, there were people that we didn't want to hear about. Because during the 16th and 19th century was during the period of transatlantic slave trade. And everybody, I mean, people, our colonial writers, I mean, all of us, we lampooned them and we said, but now we have suddenly developed a liking for that. So what is it again about? You see, we had three areas of migration to Europe and America. 16th to the 19th century, and then after the independence, the 1960s, and then we have from 1980 now that we are talking about a DV lottery. So it's quite some paradox. I don't really get it. That it boils down to the fact that we Africans, we don't know what we are looking for, and we don't even know what success is. Thank you. I mean, let me land. Now, I was just going to say that if somebody should sit here in Africa and complain that he's poor, and then he drinks every day. What does he used to drink? I mean, I don't know. Alcohol is fabricated and is paid. It's not that water is everywhere in Africa. It is paid for. It means that actually we are complaining for nothing because we drink and we drink and we drink, and even beer is more expensive here than in America. So
that's why somebody said that we have drunk all our stories.
That we are drunk. So that is the thing. So I think that
thank you, Doctor. It is the topic is so interesting. We're going to organize part 2 of the show. Right. Prof, please just respect your time. 1 minute. 30 seconds you land.
It is very important that we get to know that what brings transformation is not the amount of money that I have. It is the mindset that I have. It's like I said in the beginning that if you take an agama lizard and put in an airplane, transport it to the United States, it will not become a crocodile. It remains a crocodile.
It remains a lizard.
It remains a lizard. Implying that the state of mind you have in Cameroon, if you enter the United States with that same state of mind, you will remain the same and you produce the same results. And so, if you want to make a change your mind, because it's not geographical locations that makes the difference. Your geographical location does not make the difference. It is the state of your mind that produces the kind of results you want. Because what a man thinks and says becomes a reality. So if you sit here and then you think that if I can only make it in America, then you have already condemned yourself. So I think we should begin by telling our people, Cameroon, Africa can become the El Dorado of the world. Africa is the place that has everything that we need. When we are talking of mineral resources, we have them here. We are talking of all those natural resources, we have them here. Europeans come to get it from here. Why we go over there to go work for them to transform it? It is really funny. It's a paradox. So I think we as individuals, especially those who left Cameroon or Africa for scholarship, why have they gone and remain over there? They should rush back here because the government sent them with their money to go learn so that they can come back, empower the nation. But most of them ran and remain. And today, the Europeans, the Americans have decided to come with another strategy of carrying slaves to Europe, to America from Africa. So the DV is another means to take slaves out of Africa into America, not to go help them, but to go make them work to build their system. So I think we should get to that place.
Anyway,
where
the concept of slavery might not hold there if they are the ones deciding voluntarily to go and play the devil.
It is a voluntary slavery, but this one is a new dimension of slavery which has been implanted in their minds. This time you do it deliberately.
Okay, thank you guys. So thank you guys. Our time is up. My producer signaling that our time is up.
So we thank you for the opportunity you have given us to talk to our people. Let us work on our mindset, and we will discover that we can change this country to become the best place that the world has ever seen.
Thank you, Professor Mac. Thank you so much, Nchindo Christaian, CEO of Voice of the Voiceless. Thank you so much for your time.
Welcome, Paul. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity today to be here.
Thank you. We enjoyed you, and we are going to have you more in upcoming programs. Good afternoon, wise men in the studio. These messages, they are insisting that I must read them. I salute the brilliant ideas of Dr. Ndimancho and Professor Mac. They should keep on with the good work they are doing. God bless them. And I wish my fellow Africans could open their ears to listen. I have a friend who told me that she prefers to be a tree in America than to be a worker in Cameroon. I wonder where she got that idea from. I heard Mr. Yagaka saying that school fees for medical doctors is free. True, it is 50,000. But is that the reason why doctors who went to school for 7 years plus should not be given a good salary? I am Michael, writing from Loom. There is no financial institution that will give you a loan without a land title. In Africa, there is an age limit to get a land title. How long will you wait? And why will you work to acquire land and obtain a land certificate? Of course, information that we have to verify. Monjo in Adamawa region. Good day to all in the studio. In Africa, there are many problems that push people to Europe or in America. In Africa, there is injustice, embezzlement, killing, and bad governance. For example, in Douala, a single person will corrupt justice to destroy a whole quarter for his own purpose, and this will be allowed in Africa. Monjo in Adamawa. Of course, I think the messages are just so many. Please, we are going to read them next time. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. On that note, we end today's edition of 90 Minutes in Africa. I want to thank my guest, Professor Akuhmbom Mac, who is a political analyst, Yagaka Gabriel, a researcher and a political analyst too, Dr. Ndimancho, the coordinator of the New Era Youth for Africa, and Nchindo Christaian, who is the CEO of Voice of America, Voice of the Voiceless, who joined us from the United States of America. The program was produced by Nolinga, Ewane.